What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the True Form Podcast, first episode of 2026. We're going to go back to last year and go over all the habits, strategies, teachable moments, things that I've been implementing into my life that are helping me to find my true form, because that's what this podcast is all about. Me just trying to navigate this crazy world and live a life that is true and authentic to me. And I'm just taking you guys along for the ride. Last year was a big year, and I appreciate every single one of you for listening and supporting and commenting and enjoying the shows, but it wouldn't be anything without the guests, and that's why I like doing these episodes. Although I'm not going to go over every single episode, because there was an episode every single week, so that's 52 episodes. These are just the takeaways that I've learnt to use in my day-to-day life, or things that I'm pondering on, or just the biggest impact that I've had in my life. But I want to hear what you enjoyed most from last year. So in the comments, if you're watching on YouTube, or find me on social media, let me know what was your favorite episode, biggest takeaway, biggest light bulb moment. I love hearing them, and obviously it just informs me of who I should be getting on the podcast as well, like what content you enjoy and what content helps you find your true form as well. So comments, Instagram, find me, let me know. I'd appreciate that, and I appreciate you enjoying this content. These aren't in any particular order. I just started journaling about the previous year, and they just popped up in whatever order they did, except for maybe the first one. If you take any of this advice or any of this content in, this is probably the main one I want you to take going forwards into 2026. Obviously, this time of the year, everybody's smashing their New Year's resolutions, starting goals, all that sort of stuff. And if you understand this concept, it will completely change your life on how you approach your goals or whatever you're trying to achieve. But I guarantee it will help you get better results and faster results as well. We're going back to episode 276 with Thien. Strong feet, strong life was the tagline for this episode. And what he said in there, we recorded this about 3 months ago, and I have not stopped thinking about it. And it's not just how I'm approaching my goals moving forwards, it's how I'm going to help my clients moving forward as well. So just a great piece of advice for everybody out there. Like, again, whether you're trying to achieve something or you're coaching people, you really need to understand this concept. So just a little bit of background on Thien. So he's a podiatrist, obviously, all about feet this episode, but he knows his stuff. He's been practicing podiatry forever. He's got 2 siblings, brother and sister. They're both podiatrists as well. So when they get together, they're all talking about feet and foot health and what makes a foot work properly. And obviously with Strata as well, Thien has created some amazing products. And so he obviously knows everything he needs to know about feet and how to help you overcome all your issues. So my point is, he knows a lot and everything to do with feet. But even he said, when you go in to see him, you hold 60% of the knowledge that is going to help you get better. So take that in for a second. You hold the key. He said 60%. I still think it's probably more like 80%. You hold 80% of the knowledge that is going to help you get results. And that's crazy. A lot of people go into like set goals or get help, personal training, go in to see a podiatrist, and they say, look, my feet hurt, fix them. And the best podiatrist in the world isn't going to be able to work with that and understand that. As the coach, you have to ask the best questions so you can understand that 80 or 60% of what that knowledge that patient has, so you can help them the best. So this means 2 things. You need to understand yourself. You need to be aware of what your goal is, like what is influencing your goals, what's influencing that pain, how you're moving, so you can give the best possible, like when somebody says, how can I help you? You need to give the most best detailed understanding answer so that person can actually help you. So you need to do a lot of work on understanding your goals, what motivates you, and what's behind that motivation, so you can actually give the best possible answer, how can I help you? you give the best possible answer to that coach. Now, you need to make sure that you're seeing a good coach. If that's only 20, if the coach can only help you 20%, then you need to be seeing a good coach. Now, that's going to be different for everybody. Even myself as a personal trainer, I'm not the best personal trainer or best coach for everybody out there. There's only certain people that I can help. But you need to know that 80% of your results are relying on you. And once you understand that and you are willing to dive deeper into your whys, the motivation, and just understanding you, you're just going to have way better results. So biggest takeaway from that episode was just understand you, your goals, and understand that 80%. I know Thien said 60%, but I'm saying 80% relies on you. And then once you understand that 80%, go find a good coach, personal trainer, life coach, podiatrist, whoever you're seeing. Make sure they're good so they can ask the right questions and help you find or help you get those results. Episode 259 with Sammie Lee. This was a epic episode, and big thanks to Sammie for going into the topics and her stories. Not too many people would dive into those stories on a platform like this. So Sammie, I appreciate you doing it. I just wish this episode performed way better. Just when you talk about these sort of things like sexual abuse with kids, eating disorders, all that sort of stuff, the algorithm just picks it up and just sort of pushes it down a little bit. So unfortunately, it didn't perform that well. But if anything is resonating with you, please go back and listen to this episode. It's obviously a very touchy subject. So again, listen to the episode. I recommend if anything does come up, go and seek help in finding why that trauma is there and accepting it. I've got the notes here in my diary. I'm going to read from my diary. I actually went over this with Sammie because it is such a touchy subject. I don't want to say touchy subject. It shouldn't be a touchy subject. We should be able to talk about trauma and your history and what makes you without any prejudice or judgment. Anyway, big thanks to Sammie for going over this with me as well. So from my diary, going to figure out how my brain works, you guys. Your past shapes your habits, your personality, and your future, and that's okay. You need to pay attention to this and accept it. Knowing this gives you the ability and the power to achieve and change anything. So what that means is we all go through shit moments in life. Again, all different levels. And the thing is, we all have different reactions to different things. So what affects one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to affect another person. So we are very individual with what makes us us and our traumas as well. But you need to accept those traumas. A lot of the time, I just see people get hurt by things or, again, go through traumas and ignore them and push them down. But what they don't realize that those traumas are dictating your personality, like triggering things that will stop you or trigger you into some sort of emotional response. And until you take the time to accept those traumas, go over them and just understand them and how they're actually affecting you, you can. And again, Sammie goes over this way better in the episode. So go back and listen to episode 259 with Sammie, because you can use those shit moments, those things that really are terrible, to make you a better person and achieve amazing things. And Sammie is a great example from that, like from sexual abuse, basically dying 3 times from under eating and just some really horrific things, to come out the other side and do what she's doing now is just absolutely amazing. And it goes to prove that you can use those shit times, those traumas, to become a better person as long as you know how. Obviously, you're going to need help to do that. I don't think you can do that on your own. So going to see a psychologist or a psychotherapist to understand those traumas so you can use them as a superpower is just life-changing. So again, Sammie, big thanks for coming on the podcast and sharing those stories. just being able to share those stories and reflect back on a platform like this just goes to show that, yeah, you can do amazing things. The next is 2 episodes that I think go together quite well. One's about awareness, and then once you're aware of it, how to fix it. Stress. So stress has come up quite a lot on the podcast over the last year, especially if the doctors I get on the podcast. A big thing, I think, in the medical scene is stress. People are starting to realize that stress is the cause of a lot of health issues. In the episode with Nupur Nag, Dr. Nupur, in episode 273, we talk about that. Like, both Nupur and I have stories how we were exercising, sleeping right, eating healthy, thinking we were healthy people, but then stress just came out and just absolutely just demolished us. Like, I tell my story of how I woke up in a restaurant with the paramedics ready to zap me back to life. And anyway, I'll go over that in the story. And Nupur had a very similar story as well, how we both thought we were very healthy, doing healthy activities, but stress was just coming in a way that we just could not see, and yeah, just put us in bad situations health-wise. So go back and have a listen to that episode with Nupur. Again, that is episode 273. We talk about the 8 pillars that make up your overall health, wellness, and longevity. Again, it's not just sleep, nutrition, exercise, although obviously I think they're very important and you should be focusing on those, but it's connection, like mental health, relationships. All these things play a big part in your overall health and wellness, and stress is just one of those things that you can't see, which brings me to episode, going back quite a while, to 231 with Dr. Torkil. He's written a book on how to use HRV to manage your stress. So in the episode, one of the biggest takeaways was, like, we have these senses, like we have touch, we can smell, we can taste, we can see, but we do not have a sense for stress. We know if something's going to be killing us through touch. So if somebody had a sharp object and was pushing it into your arm, you're going to have a response to that because it's a sharp object and you know that that can cause quite a lot of harm. But when it comes to stress, you just cannot sense it. And that's where HRV comes in. And as I'm talking about that, obviously I'm not wearing any wearables, but wearables that can track your HRV are very important. I think they're going to be even more important moving forwards with the whole AI technology. Like, when you can combine your tracking your HRV and AI, I think that's going to be a big, powerful thing moving forwards. And Dr. Torkil is one of the, he's been there for years. He's a doctor. So he's a doctor that has worked with a lot of people and, again, realised that there's more to just life than medication and eating right, exercising, all that sort of stuff. He realised stress was a big killer. And how do you manage stress? HRV. And again, stress, I even asked Torkil in the episode, like, there's good stresses, bad stresses. How do we know what's a good stress and what's a bad stress? And he said, whatever stress you can recover from is a good stress, but you don't know what is actually stressing you and you don't know how to recover from it without tracking your HRV. So go back and listen to that episode. Again, those 2 episodes are 273 with Nupur and then Torkil in 231. Again, 2 episodes that just fit well with each other, but recorded about 8 months apart. The truth about fitness with Cam Harris. So Cam is from Truth Fitness in the UK. When you get coaches on, or when you're talking to somebody and they've worked with literally thousands of people, you need to take on board what they're talking about, because you know they've worked with so many people, they've tested things, they've implemented things, and they know what works because, again, they have that sample range. And Cam is one of those people. So when he talks, you should be listening and paying attention. And the thing is, when we were talking on the episode, we're talking about such simple things, like things that people just take for granted that they're doing every day, that are overlooked. And it's so simple, you're like, oh, it can't be that easy. And you go for the harder things. Like, we spoke for about half an hour and we didn't even talk about exercise. We spoke about the things you're already doing. So you're already eating, sleeping, drinking. If you can dial those things in just a little bit better, it's going to have a massive impact than trying to start new routines, add in workouts, do this, run marathons, all that sort of stuff. So you're better off focusing on the things you're already doing, the simple little things that you're overlooking that are going to have a massive impact on your life. So Cam just brings up a bunch of different easy, simple things that you should be doing in your day-to-day life. Again, you're already eating food. So how can you just make simple little changes to what you're eating that are going to have a big impact? And there's things that you probably don't even see. And again, this is why you need to go back and work with somebody like Cam, because there'll be just habits that you're doing in your day-to-day life that if you just tweak a little bit, that are going to have a massive impact, like drinking your calories. Like, so many people are drinking like soft drinks, coffees, milkshake, whatever orange juices, all that sort of stuff that are bumping up their calorie intake for each day. And if you can just tweak that a little bit and cut out a couple of hundred calories through the liquid you're drinking, that is going to completely change the trajectory of your life and help you live a long, healthy, happy life as well. So just simple little things like that. So I guess the biggest takeaway from that episode, again, 246, is just take a minute and focus on, you can time block or just write out a diary of the things you are eating and drinking throughout the day and just take note of those little habits that you can start twisting that will just have a massive impact. Go back and listen to the episode. Again, that's why I get the guests on, because they talk about this stuff way better than I can even talk about it. So again, episode 246 with Cam Harris from Truth Fitness. This next episode was the most downloaded episode of 2025. So last year, the most downloaded episode. And we cover some great topics. So this episode 250 with Dr. Avi Charlton was a great episode. We cover so much around health and wellness. So again, a little bit of backstory. Avi is a GP for about 20 years now. And she realised that she was prescribing medication, all this sort of stuff, and it wasn't really right. And she now prescribes lifestyle. So instead of prescribing medications, she prescribes lifestyle interventions. And she's written a whole book on it. So I'd strongly recommend diving into that episode and her book and her content. Obviously, you all enjoyed it because, again, most downloaded episode. We cover, how to reduce diabetes through keto or low-carb diets, cholesterol, the biggest issues around habits and food addiction. And I started off the conversation with what was health to her. And this is my notes in my journal about you would think after 20 years, a GP, what's health to you? You would think it would be some sort of lifestyle or something like that. But she said, one thing that has completely changed my mind and that I've used in my day-to-day life is probably one of the biggest takeaways from last year is be curious. You need to be curious about your health and wellness. You can't rely on others. If you go to a doctor, and again, this is coming from a GP for 20 years, you can't just go to a doctor and say, this is my issues. Again, this comes back to the very first thing I said. Like, if you're unwell and you're sick, you must know that 80% of what you need to know before you go and see somebody. Again, that's what was the first one. Thanks, Thien. But where was I going with that? You can't rely on a doctor or a PT or a practitioner to help you. Like, you have to care about your health and fitness more than anybody. No one cares about it more than you do or more than you should. Because again, we're all here to help you, but you need to be curious about everything somebody says. And when she said that, I was just like, of course, and when it comes, again, big takeaway from the episode is she spoke about the keto diet. I've always been a big critic of the keto diet for a long time. And here's a doctor of 20 years telling me to be curious. Don't just take it don't take it for what somebody said. Be curious about it. Ask questions. Ask the right questions. And then we covered the keto diet. And since that episode, I was curious, so I dived into it. I've tried it myself. I've got a couple of my clients to try it. And the keto diet is great for certain people. Like, again, I don't think it's the end-all be-all, but like, it's very effective for certain people. And the keto diet is great for the right people. But you need to be curious and find out whether it is right for you. Go see your doctor, ask the right questions. Again, you need to know that 80% of you and why you're there to see that practitioner. Otherwise, you're going to get answers that aren't the right answers. And it's not because the practitioner is wrong. It's just you don't understand your goals and your whys and the questions you're asking. So if you can ask that practitioner better questions, they can give you better answers. And if they're the best practitioner that you're seeing, they're going to give you better answers. But you still need to stay curious and ask the right questions and just, prescribing lifestyle. Great episode. Go listen to it again, episode 250 with Dr. A.V. Charlton. Resilience is a very big topic, theory, idea. Like, what is resilience? I've been trying to understand this for years now, and it wasn't until I had Kosmas on the podcast in episode 258. Cos is just a next level human. Just the way his brain thinks, what he's accomplished in his life. Like, we spoke for 2 hours, and we didn't even get onto what he's doing at the moment. So Cos is a therapist, psychotherapist. Him and his team basically invented family therapy here in Melbourne 50 years ago. Oh, maybe 40, sorry, Cos. And he's just helped, he's traveled the world, written papers, helped students. Like, the amount of students he's helped do PhDs and the amount of different topics around mental health, psychology, he is just, and the way he remembers information, it was probably one of my favorite episodes of the year. The questions I would ask him, I was getting answers that I just didn't think I would get. And that's just the way his brain works. Like, it's just a beautiful way that it works. Like, I'd ask a question thinking would go in this direction into the topic, and he'd just come back with a way that he's interpreted that question in a way that I just didn't even think was possible. So we do bounce a little bit all over the place, but it's just the way he understands the world. If you can listen to Cos talk and understand where he's coming from, you will be a much happier person and live in a world that just seems so much better and grateful as well. Anyway, back to resilience. I asked Cos, what is resilience? And when you think you need to be resilient, you think about you need to be mentally tough. You need to be strong. You need to basically be a strong wall that bounces, things off. I'm going to play his response here because I'm just going to butcher it if I try and do it. So here's his response to what is resilience. First, we probably should define resilience. So when I say the word resilience, how do we define that?
Yeah, well, I view resilience, from a particular perspective, okay? And when it comes to definitions, there are many, many definitions of resilience. And when you review the literature on resilience, what one finds is that this construct or concept originated from engineering.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Where this is one view, and that you're talking about materials being resilient. So, in other words, not breaking, being malleable, being able to stretch, for example, the wire. Okay? So, in other words, you've got buildings that are resilient. There are definitions that focus on communities. Resilient Victoria, resilient villages, resilient communities that have been affected by flood, fire. So we can look at resilience from a macro perspective. But there's also the micro perspective, the individual. What makes individuals resilient? And what is resilience when you talk about individuals? But also, what are firms, a firm, and what might make a firm resilient to the turbulence, the uncertainty that we're facing at the moment. Okay? And so getting back to how I view it, and this is really based on the work of a number of PhD students that I've had that have looked at this area. And the perspective, and it's one of many that I take, is that resilience isn't a single construct. And I think people tend to view it as something as a single construct. It gets back to what I'm repeating over and over again. It's a multi-determined construct. And I regard resilience as a dynamic capability, a capacity. And it involves a number of capacities, a number of capabilities. And can we focus on the individual, for example? And so this might be the capability to bounce back to a previous level. It might mean the capability or the capacity, the asset, the skill to adapt. So resilience involves the ability to change, to be flexible, to be adaptable, to actually be able to scan your environment. It also means being able to identify the consequences, identify the opportunities, okay? But also to identify the risks associated with taking particular actions. And it's being able to put all of these capabilities together in a dynamic way that enables a person, I think, to be resilient. So it is insufficient to just focus on the unitary or the single component. So you are assisting a person in therapy or a person in the gym where you might work to develop some of these skills, some of these assets that they can apply to their day-to-day life. Excuse me.
No.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Go for it. And what you described makes perfect sense. And hearing it, I've had so many light bulbs go off. Like, we're taught, again, it's probably social media is probably the biggest issue. We're told resilience is like almost the opposite to what you said. Be a brick wall, be unbreakable, don't move, like don't give anything, and like whatever bangs up against you, you've just got to repel it, and that is resistance. That's almost the vibe of the word within the social media realm.
Yeah.
So what you've explained is just absolutely beautiful. It makes perfect sense, and why wouldn't that be more resilient? You see what I mean? Absolutely amazing. So go back and listen to the full episode and just enjoy that conversation with Kos. And I promise I will get him back on for round 2. So if you've got any follow-up questions or anything like that, let me know. Again, find me on socials, jump in the comments. And yeah, let me know any follow-ups for round 2 with Kosmas. The world we are living in has never been noisier. So social media, the news, content is just everywhere. YouTube, Netflix, the people around you are influencing your decisions, your habits, the way you view the world as well. So if you don't quieten it and take the time to figure out what is authentic and what you want to achieve in this life, you're just going to end up living a very unhappy, unfulfilled life. And again, it doesn't matter what that looks like. I just want you to be happy at the end of the day. And this episode with Flabia, finding your purpose in a noisy world. I love that tagline for this episode. It's just, it hits the nail on the head for this episode and just this time period as well. Episode 248 with Flabia. And I strongly recommend going and finding Flabia on social media and following what she's doing at the moment. So in the episode, we sort of talk about just how crazy the world is and how we need to find ourselves. I think Flabia and I were both in the same situation of just being influenced and trying to find where we fit and like our purpose in this world. And it just goes to show that she knows what she was talking about and the things that she is doing and recommends that you do to quieten the noise and find your purpose. What she's doing now, it just proves that that works. So go back and have a listen to the episode. We talk about a lot of different ways on how you can quieten the noise. Like a lot of the guests talk about this that I get on, like journaling, meditation, whatever that looks like for you, prayer. Again, there's many different ways to do it. We talk about in the episode, but yeah, just take the time and go back and listen to episode 248 with Flabia, because again, I don't want you to be influenced by, even me doing this podcast is influencing you in ways. Like you need to take the time to find out who you are, your true form and your authentic self, so you can live a life true to you. And this episode, I guess, is the best way of finding your true form. So go listen to that episode. Back in the start of 2025, I think, the Fitness Expo was on here in Melbourne, and I wanted to know what the hell fitness was. So I grabbed my mic, grabbed my camera, my trusty sidekick, Bradley. He was behind the camera, and I went around to as many people in that expo and asked them, what is fitness? And it was just a very cool experiment. I absolutely loved it. When people start talking about what fitness is to them and seeing their face light up, it's just a really cool experience and experiment for me. One of those people I asked was Tom Rock from episode 234. Tom is an absolute legend. He works at the Australian Fitness Academy, teaching people to become amazing PTs. I absolutely love the work they do there. I've seen a few people there, and the PTs that come out on the other side are just next level. So this episode was pretty much just all about PTs, fitness, what the hell is health and fitness. And again, Tom comes from a place where he knows, like he's a PT himself, and now he's teaching people as well. So just, a good episode to understand what fitness is. The biggest takeaway from that, we were talking about people getting online programs or coaching online. I know I do that as well, but it's hard to teach intensity. So when you're starting a health and fitness regime and going into the gym and working out, the workouts are very important. There's 24 hours in the day, and your workout is, say, 40 minutes to an hour of that, which is not much. So what you do in the gym is extremely important. So yes, form matters, your technique matters, your program matters. But one big thing that people are missing is intensity. And we talk about that in the episode. Intensity in your workout matters a lot. And you can't really do that. It's hard to learn intensity without somebody helping you. And even for me, like I need to check in every now and then on intensity. So I get help, because you can get set in your ways, and too much intensity is just going to destroy your body. You're going to get injured. You're not going to adapt to the training, and you won't get any results from it. Not enough intensity, and you're just fluffing around the gym, and you're just not going to get results at all. So finding the right intensity, and that's going to be different for everybody. So it depends on how often you train, how old you are, your lifestyle. So all these factors go into intensity, but it's just one thing that no one really talks about, especially when it comes to getting an online program or just starting a workout routine. If you just go to the gym and start, I'd strongly recommend seeing a personal trainer and just talking about intensity in your program. Like, I'd rather see you doing the right intensity than in a shit program than a really good program and the wrong intensity, because you're just going to get way better results with the right intensity. I just said intensity a lot, so go have a listen to that episode. If you, again, I think this episode is great for this time of the year. Everybody's starting their New Year's resolutions, starting to work out. So go have a listen to that episode with Tom Rock, 234. If you are starting to work out this year, it's a good episode to help you find the right intensity and the workout programs and understand what fitness is. I'm just going to read the title for this episode out for you guys. How Comedy Can Build Confidence, Crush Fear, and Help You Find Your Voice with Jordana. This episode was a lot of fun for me to record, but I can't stress this enough. Again, now more than ever, when social media is so pronounced and everybody struggles with like going out and doing things. Maybe not everyone, but I do. There's certain situations or scenarios, maybe it's dating, getting a certain podcast guest on, that stress me out. I have a lot of anxiety around it. But if you can use comedy to flip that around, it really just gives you way more confidence in those scenarios. And Jordana goes over different ways you can use comedy to overcome those things like anxiety, all that sort of stuff. She even uses example of having like going into a date and having a bad experience and then using that bad experience to create a joke, and it becomes funny and a good story to tell. And not only that, when you turn it into a joke, it becomes a lot more lighthearted, but you can learn the lessons from it as well, because if it's a negative experience, you're probably going to ignore it, going back to Sammie Lee's episode, and just put up walls for your next one. And where if you make a bit of a joke about a bad experience on a date and have it very lighthearted, you can go into the next one with a lot more confidence and just be way more relaxed, which is going to be a way better experience for you and the other person on the other side of the date as well. So one of the biggest takeaways from that episode, and something that I've been using since that episode as well, is what's the worst that can happen? So let me bring that back a little bit. What's the worst can happen? Again, like I said, I have a lot of anxiety around certain situations. So what Jordana taught me was, what's the worst can happen? And then you write down what's the worst can happen. And then what's the worst can happen after that? And then you write that down. And about the fifth time in, it becomes that ridiculous, it actually becomes funny. And once it becomes funny, you're like, okay, what was I actually worried about in that situation? Because all the anxiety, all the fear about what can actually happen seems that ridiculous that you're just like, whatever, I'll just go into this and have fun. And if things do come up, you've already thought about it and it's a little bit of a joke with yourself. So it just takes that seriousness out of it. And again, if you go into a situation and you're a lot happier and you're smiling and it's funny, whatever situation that is, if it's 1 or 100 people in that situation, it's just way more enjoyable for everybody. So if you struggle with like any sort of public speaking, confidence, going out and experiencing new things, I'd strongly recommend going back and listen to that episode. Jordana gives a couple of different scenarios of how you can use comedy to overcome that. We use one of my examples of something in the gym that was causing me stress and turn it into a joke. So it's cool to see how a comedian would take real world situations and turn them into jokes as well. So go back and listen to episode 236 with Jordana. Do you think people can change? I hear this all the time, and this is why I think finding your true form is so important, because people are like, oh, that person is like this and they're never going to change and that's just who they are. And I can't disagree with that the most. And this episode I reflect back on all the time when somebody says that. I'm like, well, I've actually got proof of somebody that has completely changed who they are. And we're going back to episode 226. Maybe that was 2024. Anyway, it's good, still a good episode. So big thanks to Ferdi for coming on and telling his story. Like, here's somebody that was in and out of jail for 15 years, in gangs, physical violence, drugs, without diving into it too much. Obviously, Ferdi doesn't go into too many of his stories either in the episode because, that can come back and bite him pretty bad in illegal or other ways. So, but Ferdi has told me his story, like a lot of different stories off camera. He's a good mate of mine, so we have lots of conversations about this, and hearing who he was back then and what he was into and who he is now, they are two completely different people. And like one extreme, very extreme to who he is now. It's proof that people can change for the better. And I don't care what you say. You can break old habits. You can become a better person. You can change your mindset. And you can become and reinvent yourself. And just like Ferdi is a personal trainer now, and what he's doing is absolutely amazing. Like, he's helping people become a healthier person. People, like, through health, fitness, dieting, mindsets, in a positive way, compared to, say, go back 15 years ago, and it was a completely different story. So go back and listen to episode 226. Again, I appreciate Ferdi for coming on and sharing what he did. But again, this episode always sits with me, and it has always sat with me because it's just proof that people can change. And when people say, oh, that person's just the way they are and they're never going to change and they can't change, I just call bullshit because I got proof. Ferdi, you can do it. Even he says in the episode, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And he goes through how he actually did it and broke that cycle. I'm not saying it's easy or it doesn't take hard work, and he had to sacrifice, a lot of the life, pretty much his whole life that he knew, his friends, most of his family, all that sort of stuff to become the person he is. But it's possible. You can change who you are and become a way better person no matter your history. Whether you're in the gym or in life, I'm a gym guy, so I'm going to use the gym as a perfect example here. If you're lifting and you haven't got a strong, solid base, then you are going to injure yourself, or you're just not going to get the results you want. And that strong base starts with your feet. So why I get podiatrists on like Helen in episode 270, because she understands that, and again, she's worked with thousands of people, so you should take on what she says. Again, if somebody has worked with literally thousands, maybe even tens of thousands at this point of people, you need to take on what she's saying. And I strongly believe your true form starts with a strong base, and your feet are so important. We take for granted the ability to walk, move, get up out of a chair until it's too late. And when you can't do that, your true form won't happen. And I do believe that starts with your feet. In this episode with Helen, in episode 270, we talk about how important your feet are. We all take it for granted. Like, you're just walking around, living your best life, but as your feet start to deteriorate, if you're not being aware of them and having strong feet, your gait, your stride, you start getting worse, your hips start hurting, your knees start hurting, your back starts hurting, you start hunching. So all of a sudden, after a couple of years, it could be a matter of 2 years or 20 years, your posture's worse. And we know from studies, if you're hunched forwards, your confidence is going to be bad, and that affects your brain. So if you can walk around with good posture, strong feet, your confidence is going to be better. So when I say a foundation is your foundation will help you live a long, true, happy life, it does start with your feet. A good example is myself this year. I've been struggling with a lot of foot pain, plantar fasciitis, then a stress fracture in my foot as well. When you stop walking and doing things you enjoy, for a period there, I couldn't even get out and go for a hike. And I love getting out in nature. It helps me clear my mind. And if you listen to the podcast a long time, you know that getting out in nature is just really good for your overall health, mental health as well, but also stress reduction. So when you can't do that anymore, it starts to affect you in different ways, and things that you would, like surfing as well. Like I couldn't surf there for a little while as well. So all these things that I enjoy doing, I couldn't do anymore because of my foot. And you might think, oh, that's like just get out and do other things, but it starts affecting your mental health because you're like, oh, well, I can't actually do that because my foot and this and that. And like, again, that stems from my foot. So my foot is affecting my mental health and what I can actually do in my life to help me live a long, healthy, happy life. So again, I'm just butchering this, but obviously I'm very passionate about it because I want you all to live a long, healthy, happy life. And feet are just so overlooked. So go listen to that episode. Helen is absolutely amazing. Again, one person that is very authentic in her approach to life and her approach to podiatry as well. So it really comes through in the podcast. So go listen to that episode 270, and you'll thank me later. I love this podcast because it introduces me to a bunch of different people trying to do amazing things, whether it's non-for-profits, starting new businesses, podcasts, YouTube channels, whatever it is. I meet a lot of people trying to change the world in a very positive way. But one of the biggest things I see is people just, again, I'm probably guilty of this as well. We're in our own heads and we don't start because we're like, oh, I need to wait for the right time, or I need to get this money, or, it's just not the right time. I'm going to wait for this to happen, or I'll wrap that up and then I'll start this project. There's never the right time to start. And this episode with Mamuch, episode 245 with Mamuch, is just a perfect example of that. Mamuch is an absolute legend. So he started a non-for-profit before he even knew what a non-for-profit was. He just wanted to help people. He had a passion. He just went out and did it, and then just figured it out as he went. And it's just proof that you can achieve anything. You just need to start and go and start doing things. As long as you have that concept in your head and that passion and that idea of where you want it to go, just start. That idea might change over time, and it probably will change over time, but the more you learn, the more you'll adapt, and you just, again, have that idea. And again, like I said, I meet so many people with these awesome ideas that want to change the world in such a positive way, but they're waiting for the right time. As long as you have that idea and that passion, it's useless unless you start. You need momentum. It's like if you're holding a weight, nothing's going to happen until you start with that momentum. You might have that idea in the head that you're going to do the best bicep curl in the world, but until you actually start curling, nothing is going to happen. And that's the same with your passion and what you want to achieve in life. We all have passions. Hopefully by now you've found your purpose and your true form. It's all well and good to write it down and have that passion, but you just need to start. And if you're struggling to start and you have that idea and there's a little bit of a hurdle in the way, go listen to episode 245 with Mamuch. Again, absolute legends, just very inspiring person as well. So if you're looking for that inspiration to get started on your next passion project or find your purpose, or you found your purpose and you don't know how to get started, go listen to that episode. Absolute inspiring human and a great episode. The tagline for this episode was self-worth and true well-being. This episode with Andrew Jobling, episode 262, my biggest takeaway, and something I've used like quite literally when I'm been journaling from that episode, is finding evidence of the person you think you are or trying to prove wrong. We all have these ideas in our head of who we are, right? Or who we aren't, or who we should be. And in the episode, Andrew goes over how to find evidence on proving the person you are. Like, sometimes we second guess ourselves. Again, for this podcast, I guess you could say, like, a lot of the time I'm like, am I worthy of the guests I get on? Am I worthy of these conversations? Should I actually be the person doing this podcast? Who am I to be doing this? And I use that episode and what Andrew said, like, you go back and find evidence. It's like, okay, well, yes, I've been doing this for, 280 80 something episodes. So I guess I do know what I'm doing to a certain extent. And then it's like, okay, well, I've had guests on that have, said certain things, and I've had people come back to me and say those things have changed their life. Okay, so, well, there's proof that that conversation has changed somebody else's life. But you can do that for anybody. Like if you're trying to find confidence, like you can literally go back and go through your life and find points where you were confident to doing certain things. And it's like, well, you have got that confidence. We just have so much doubt in our minds, in our heads, and we are so easily influenced again by social media and all that sort of stuff that we haven't got the life that we should be living or anything like that. Even if you're looking for happiness, you can go back and look through your life and you have periods and things that make you happy, and you can go, well, yeah, I have got things to be grateful for. I am happy. So this is a good episode if you're somebody that is second guessing something that you're going through or a feeling that you're having. Go back and have a listen to that episode. Again, just finding that evidence of that emotion or that person you're trying to prove that you are is just a good skill to have. And that's where I learned it from Andrew Jobling in episode 262. This episode was pretty much just a therapy session for me, all about dating. So Teresa, TED Tea Talks with Tez, I was listening to her podcast, and her podcast is, I think, mainly for women, but I was listening along. I really vibed with her content. And I'd strongly recommend, if you're somebody that is trying to date or understand relationships or trying to improve your own relationship, check out Tez's podcast. Her content is great, just very authentic, and comes from a place of her learning about these things herself. And I was listening along to her podcast, and I was just having light bulb after light bulb. And I reached out for her to come on my podcast. And like I said, it ended up just being a therapy session for me about dating. Again, so much fun, so much appreciation for her authenticity as well with her content. The biggest takeaway from that episode, again, I feel like I had a lot of big takeaways from that episode. So I appreciate you all for listening to that episode. It did end up, like I said, just probably being all about me. I hate doing that and making episodes all about me because I want to find out, again, how we can all find our true form. But sometimes it just ends up me trying to figure it out for myself. And hopefully you all can come along for the ride and figure it out as well. But my biggest one, and I guess a lesson I've learned over the last 12 months or so dating again in my 30s. The episode tagline was starting again in your 30s. But it doesn't matter about when you're starting again. But the biggest takeaway, and something I have really trying to implement into my day-to-day life, not just dating. Okay, when you go on dates, yes, same thing as, I think it's just the same as having a friendship, family. I do it with my clients as well, interactions with random people in the streets. If you can do this, I think you're just going to be a way better person, not just for yourself, but the people around you as well. So again, I'm just going to use a relationship, for example, but you can use this for any situation. When you're going into a new relationship, you need to be authentic and vulnerable. Those two things. Again, I'm saying it like it's easy. It's super hard to do. Authentic is very hard to find out. Again, that's what this podcast is all about, you finding your authentic self. But then trying to be vulnerable, like putting yourself out there is very hard. And I've found this as well, and I'm guilty of this as well. So when you go into a date, you really want that person sitting opposite you to like you. We all are guilty of this. And I think it's just a profound social media thing. Like, we are putting ourselves out there. We need every single person to like us. Like, you need to like me. And in doing that, you're putting up a facade of a random person that probably isn't you. And you're probably just trying to be somebody that is impressing that person sitting across from you. And this is going to cause all sorts of issues. Again, it could just be a friendship. Like, that person sitting opposite you, if they vibe with that facade you're putting up, they're going to fall in love with that person, and you're going to enter in a relationship under this false pretenses, and eventually, it could be 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, that facade's going to drop, and then both of you are just going to go, like, this isn't what I signed up for, and it's going to cause all sorts of issues. So if, again, saying this like it's easy, when you're going into a new relationship, try and be authentic and be vulnerable. It's going to let that person opposite you figure out if they actually like you for you. And it's okay if they don't like you. I think that's the biggest thing we all get caught up on. Again, guilty of that as well. But not every single person is going to like you, and that's okay. You're just trying to figure out the people that do like you for you. And once you start figuring out those people and they surround you, you're just going to have such a better life. And it's way better for you to be authentic and vulnerable going out and searching for your true form. So I don't know how you're going to do that. Go back and listen to that episode with Tez. So that's episode 272. We talk about that in the episode. I think that's just very different for everybody. Just trying to be authentic and vulnerable when you're meeting somebody for the first time so they can see you for you. And if they don't like you, that is okay. Not everybody has to like you, and you don't have to make everybody like you. Just be yourself, and you'll find the people that like you for you, and you'll be way happier. You're not putting up some weird facade trying to impress people. Again, very hard lesson to learn. I think this episode goes in really good with the last episode with Tez. So this episode with Christopher August, episode 266. I think you could probably listen to, this was recorded about 3 or 4 months in between, but you could listen to one and then the other. I don't know which one you'd listen to first. Maybe listen to Christopher first and then listen to Tez. So 266 is this episode. And just a great conversation about authenticity. Like, he really blew my mind about things I needed to work on. I think this was a good catalyst for me to go, okay, I'm not getting the results I want. It's not the world around me. It's me that I need to work on. So a great episode just about looking within if you're not getting the results you want. I guess a good example of this is relationships, but this could be related to business, workouts. Like, if you're not getting the health and fitness goals you want, again, you need to look inwards rather than outwards. And this was a good example of that. I'll use relationships. I think I bring this up in the episode with Christopher. I was dating, and I was attracting girls that didn't want kids, but kids are something that I want. And, we go over in the episode, how to understand what you want and what you need, all that sort of stuff. The difference between wants and needs are very important as well. So kids are something that I want. And I was attracting all these dates with girls that didn't want kids. And I brought that up with Christopher, and I'm like, oh yeah, it just seems to be this weird concept of this weird world at the moment where all these females don't want kids. And he's like, Jack, it's not them, it's you. It's you are reflecting who you are, and you're attracting these females into your life that don't want kids. So it's not that the fact that, again, I want everybody to live their life true to them. And these girls I was going on dates with, they're amazing girls. It's just they didn't want the same things as I wanted. And it doesn't make them bad. It just means that I need to do work on who I am and who I am trying to go on dates with. So if you are dating and you're not finding the right partner, or you're not finding the right people that vibe with you, it's not necessarily everybody out there. You just need to take the time, again, quieten the noise, like Flabia said in her episode, figure out what it is that you actually want and your purpose, and then go and start looking for the right people. It makes a huge difference. Again, when you're not getting the results you want, stop looking at the people around you or the processes, all that sort of stuff. You just need to take the time, quiet the noise, and look within and find out what you truly want and start attracting that. Again, as always, that's why, I've said this before, that's why I get the guests on. They explain this really well. And it's definitely a concept that I've still been working on. It's a concept that I'm diving into more. I just haven't got the vocabulary to articulate it as well as Christopher. So go listen to that episode 266. Didn't really sound like much when I just explained it then, but that episode was a big catalyst in me finding out who I was, who I am, and who I'm attracting. I guess catalyst for me to find my true form. So go have a listen to that episode. Last one, I promise. As I'm scrolling through the episodes, finding the episode numbers, I'm just like, this episode. So it's not like I don't appreciate all the guests that come on. Like, I can't believe the conversations I've had and the lessons I've learnt along the way. Absolute epic year, which makes me even more excited for 2026. It really does. Like, if I can have the same conversations, I don't think, again, like I said, I don't think one guest is better than the other. Each guest just brings so much to the table, and I'm so appreciative of the person I've become because of them. And I literally feel like I'm finding my true form. So again, I'll stop going into that. And last episode, Vahid. Absolute legend. I can't wait to meet Vahid in person. I promised him I'll get to the US this year so we can do in-person episode 263. I think we recorded for about an hour, and we probably spoke for at least an hour before and after as well. Just broed out. Really good conversation. Really great guy. One of the biggest things, and I think I just needed to hear it there and then, is like, you can't be everything all at once. Like, again, with social media, we feel like we're missing out, or we've got all these people living these amazing lives, and they're doing all these amazing things and accomplishing all these things, and it's like they're just switched on, smashing it all the time. But really, it's probably only 1% of their life. Like, we're just seeing the highlights, and it's literally probably 1% of their life. The rest of the time, they could be miserable, sad, struggling with different things, probably struggling the same things that you are struggling with as well. But we see those highlights on social media, and we're like, I need to do this, this, and this, and this. And we just get so caught up in trying to be everything all at once. But as Vahid said, like, you can't be everything all at once. But what you can do is, when you're trying to do things, do that at 100%. So if you're trying to be present, but also build a business, have a conversation, be hustling to do this, you can't be present in that moment if you have all these other things going on. So if you're trying to be present, just be present. And he's written a book about how yoga can help with that. And I'd strongly recommend checking out his content and his book as well. Because you can use yoga to be present in that moment. And it's just a good way of practicing just being in that moment and being present. Saying present a lot, but being that one thing at that one time. And then, yes, when you're in yoga, you're doing the yoga, but then you can go and be that business person, or that mother, that father, or that friend. Like, when you're sitting down having dinner with a friend, be a friend. Don't be on your phone trying to sell stuff, or, get your next podcast guest on. Sit down, have a conversation with your friend, and be a friend, and just give that friend 100% effort. And then in that time, you're being one thing and one thing only. And then, like, when you're trying to, again, working out, if we're going back to Tom Rock's episode, when you're working out, you only got that 1 hour to work out. Be present in that workout and give it 100% effort, and then go on to the next thing and give it 100% effort. Just try not to be everything all at once. Also a great movie. But again, great episode. Vahid, episode 263. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. I appreciate your support for 2025. I am looking forward to 2026. I want to do more episodes where I take these lessons that I'm learning in real time, how to implement them, how to implement them into your life, why they're important, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to do more solo episodes so we can actually start learning and learn from the episodes. I love podcasting, but I hate the fact that we just listen to podcasts and then forget about them and don't implement any of the things that we've learnt. And I'm guilty of that as well, but I have obviously last year tried to implement as much as I can. So the biggest takeaways, the biggest lessons that I'm learning, I'm going to put that into content so you can follow along and actually get something out of the podcast as well. And that's what we're here all about. Okay, next week, kicking off the interviews with an amazing episode. Again, I feel like I recorded that episode in 2025, like the last couple of weeks of December. I really wanted to release it. It was a great episode, all about movement, getting into exercise. So again, very timely episode. All right, that'll do. Thanks again, and to talk to you all in the next episode.